from this cloudy London, and thank you for joining this session today. My name is Zsofia, and I'm Programmatic and Tech Lead at Euronews, and also a co-founder of the Women in Programmatic network. As a very first time being a moderator, I'm so excited to be here and find out more about the buyer side of programmatic strategy. And in the next 30 minutes, we will be talking about in-housing versus outsourcing. But first of all, please welcome our three panelists again, who I would like to invite to introduce themselves. Aifric, would you like to start?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So good morning, everyone. My name is Aifric. So I am a programmatic media team lead at booking.com. Yeah, really looking forward to the chat, and I hope we can have some good conversations. Maybe Ritesh, over to you.
Super. Good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for inviting us to come and speak this morning. We've had some really exciting chats over the last few weeks between us. I think hopefully it'll be a continuation of that discussion. So I'm Ritesh, as Gabriella mentioned, Head of Programmatic Design for Mindshare Worldwide, NEO and UK. Over to you, Alex.
And that's me. So hi, everyone. Thanks for having us first and foremost. So my name is Alex. I am the lead of performance marketing in Schneider Electric, and looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you. And now I would like to encourage our audience to ask questions from us during this conversation using the chat box, please. And if you are all ready, let's kick off with the first question. How can in-house experts make advertisers smarter clients for their agencies? Ritesh, could you be the first one?
Cool. Yeah, I think it's really important to say that you need to go on a journey with the agency to re-establish the value that they can bring, right? So in many cases, advertisers do become smarter clients for the agency, as the in-house team are just going to be much more in touch with the nitty-gritty of performance and just connected within the organization. So whether it be with departments like analytics or other channels that may be internally run. So naturally, they're going to be much more quicker to react to the business needs, and they also just have a better understanding of being able to connect the two elements of impact and cause of programmatic. So they're just well informed in terms of having discussions and evolving. What I tend to see though is in-house teams become laser focused on like raising the floor, whereas the agency is there to kind of really assist, to kind of drive and kind of raise the ceiling, like servicing new opportunities, helping future-proof, and then just provide greater value where the advertiser may just not have like enough experience or exposure. So in tandem, what you end up seeing is a dynamic duo of success to say, okay, how do they work together as a collective for a mutual goal? On the flip side, if the structure isn't there, or processes isn't there, and the talent isn't there within the organization, you do see scenarios where actually the smarter client scenario doesn't play out because we've just not set up for success.
Yeah, totally. Aifric, maybe you can continue.
Of course, yeah. No, I think I can definitely relate to a lot of the stuff that Ritesh is saying there. So at Booking.com, we enhanced all of our programmatic campaigns a couple of years ago. It does require an upskill of internal skills and competencies to ensure that you internally have that deep technical expertise and the data fluency across the key partners or platforms that you work with. So that is really a key element, I think, to fully in-housing. Mindshare did play a big part in our programmatic transition success. So they really kind of evolved their role and support to today, which is a more hybrid role, where Mindshare can provide more strategic consultation on innovative insights or opportunities from external networks or industries to ensure that we then as a brand can continue to elevate our strategies outside of our current scope.
Yeah, and finally, Alexander, if you could tell us a couple of thoughts, what you think about this question.
Yes, certainly. I think basically everything that has already been said is very true, and I see that within Schneider Electric as well. We have been pretty quick actually to in-house a couple of years ago for programmatic, and I'd be lying if I said that it was entirely easy to do this. And I think we're now looking actually for support, and really what we're looking for is it's more going in a really like a business partner direction. So to share our goals, to be aligned to the goals that we have. I think it's very helpful, this journey that we went on for in-housing, because it allows us to speak in that language, that our agencies would be speaking in. So we do understand what they're talking about. There's a lot of things that we don't lose time with, a lot of explanation, but I think that's really what we're looking for as well. I think it has been said before, it's very much a hybrid model with both sides participating.
Yeah, listening to your answers, I can definitely feel the need for a hybrid approach, because parents should have internal media divisions, as well as, I think so, working with external agencies as an extension or complementary team of their in-house intelligence. And what you've just told us, it was so relevant. And I clearly see that in-housing doesn't mean cutting off from agencies. It's like working with them in a different way. But beyond these remarks, what we just discussed, I also believe and would like to say transparency and trust are also essential, right? So could you mention some points in terms of what factors brands and agencies should consider for their long-term partnerships? Let's start with Aifric now.
Absolutely, and I think you really hit the nail on the head with that one. I think brands and agencies are and should be equally invested in ensuring business objectives and ambitions are met. And really that's regardless of the type of partnership they have, whether it's consultancy, hybrid, or really a full integration. We should both have a common goal on what success is and how we can both deliver on it. Alignment and strategic planning on key priorities and areas of focus, defining how the agency can really drive value for you as a brand is really key to making this a reality, and kind of building that transparent and trusting partnership that is so important for long-term partnerships.
Yeah, who wants to come next? Alexander, maybe?
Sure thing. I think to Aifric's point, I think really one of the key elements that we're looking into as well is obviously transparency, and obviously around programmatic, there's a lot of talk about transparency and the supply chain that goes along with it, right? And I think there's a lot of people, especially in big companies, who may have some half-informed idea about this, which they got from their LinkedIn feed. And so the first thing you hear when you mention programmatic is that, oh, no, but it's all fraud. And obviously it's not. I don't need to mention this to everyone here, but I think that's where we see also agencies to on the one hand, obviously be very transparent and also help understand how the whole ecosystem works. So I think a lot of the job for agencies in the future will be quite educational, I think, to people who don't know the last ins and outs about programmatic.
Yeah, Ritesh?
Yeah, no, Aifric and Alexander, like you raised some amazing points, and I like literally echoing them right now. But yeah, shared objectives, goals are super important. Like a clear roadmap of how you work together and what the bigger mission is. Trust, like that's underplayed in so many situations. I think we just had a great discussion about trust in such an ecosystem is so huge. And how do you kind of forge it, and who can you trust? But that's a conversation for another day. And then that whole mindset of like, we're in it together. So let's solve and kind of like look to kind of like achieve something greater. I think the reality is that the agency must also step up and be willing to kind of go on the journey and not be super resistant. But also the trust must be there from the advertiser as a partner that can help cut through the noise. So the industry as it exists, it's growing, even though there's so much consolidation, it's growing. There's so many different solutions of partners. How do you cut through that noise and make sense of what's going on? Provide some non-biased insights, and then ultimately kind of be there as the assistance to driving good, sustainable growth. That's not just focused on a campaign by campaign basis, but it's got longevity behind it. So our partnership with like Booking.com that Aifric mentioned earlier is a great example of this. It truly is just based on the people. Like from both sides, the people just work together and collaborate so well. And that's what it's founded on. I think if we had that relationship with different people on either side, it may not work in the way that it currently operates.
Yeah, I agree. And just some points or core requirements from my side. And I think so harmony, align targets and clear communication are necessarily for a sustainable and fruitful partnership. And actually, this leads to my next question. So with the process of in-housing, do you see a shift in how brands are approaching advertising goals or how they operate, such as planning, optimizing, and measurements? And more importantly, what roles do the agency play in this? Maybe let's start with Alexander now.
I think a big part of what I think a bigger part what agencies will play in the future is really about consulting and then being, I think Ritesh just mentioned harmony as well. I think, you don't always need to necessarily have a very harmonious relationship with your agency. Overall, obviously you should, but I think I'd also like to have an agency that sometimes tell me that what I'm doing is really stupid, and tell me that maybe go in another direction. And I think that's the only way to cooperate, really. If I just have someone who's constantly saying yes to everything I say, then it's no value to me. And that's why we want to bring that expertise, that consultancy. And we've also spoken about business goals and really sharing business goals. And I think for us, that was a really interesting experience from in-housing, is we have obviously very harsh KPIs, which are about pipeline and then revenue, etc., and to really be transparent to an agency as well, because you cannot complain that your agency is not doing what you want it to do if you don't share your goals with them. So it's literally, this is what we want to achieve. How can you help with us? Let's get over the low CPM and let's focus on growth, right? And I think that's where the future is most likely going, at least from our end.
And how about you, Aifric? What Booking.com think about this question?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with a lot of the things that Alex is raising as well. And I think that the bigger role the agency can play, also for Booking, is really challenging the status quo and kind of bringing more innovative tactics, platforms, maybe in a more unbiased way than you would get from a partner. So really challenging what you have on the table. And I think just to add as well, like in the process of in-housing is definitely a journey. This is not something you can flip at a switch or do from one day to the next. You need to ensure as a brand, you have the skills, you have the capabilities to really fully in-house a full marketing strategy, from planning right down to post-campaign analysis. I think once you're stuck in the weeds, I think was the term that Ritesh used earlier in this call, you get so focused in on what you're doing. It's really a nice plus in addition to have someone externally to bounce those ideas around with and make sure that you're really driving a very efficient and strategic agenda. Yeah,
and from the agency side, Ritesh?
Yeah, I think the reality is that just one model doesn't fit all, right? So it's a really difficult question to answer, because I think depending on the brand and what in-housing means for them and what's right for their business can have a massive impact on like what's the role of the agency going forward. So I think from a simple answer, it would really be that the agency's role to support, empower, and then provocate from an industry perspective. So sometimes you have to be the advisor, sometimes you're a sounding board, sometimes you could be the solution, but you have to be the devil's advocate as well. And I think Alex and Aifric both mentioned this, is saying sometimes like giving the negative point of view or the answer that doesn't want to be heard is mutually as important as kind of saying yes, because otherwise we can't grow, right? If we all just say yes, that we're just going to stagnate or hold on to someone's opinion that could or could not be right. So I think that kind of discussion / positive argument is a good place to be in. So yeah, I think it's just about kind of aligning up to the greater goal and then playing towards that as a collective.
Yeah, totally agree. And yes, flexibility, adaptation, and collaborative work are important for the ultimate success. And as you, Ritesh, mentioned, and I totally resonate with your statement, there is no one model fits all. So we need to be flexible for sure. And actually, from the publisher side, we have similar challenges. We also need to adapt. We need to figure out how we will execute the proposal, how we will supply and support our partners, clients, and of course, after confirming all the campaign needs, purpose, and KPIs. And also I would highlight that in publisher side, let's say, sales and AdOps have fundamental and critical role within the programmatic team, as well as external technologies who supports our day-to-day work as well. And talking about adapting new media needs, in particular, the always evolving programmatic space, one question popped into my head, and I would like to know your opinion about it as well. Will programmatic play an even bigger role in the future of media? Who would like to take this question first?
Happy to take it first, Zsofia.
Okay.
It's a good question, and I think programmatic will and should continue to play a really important role in the future of media. But as advertisers or even tech partners, I think we have to continuously adapt to the new reality of data and privacy restrictions to ensure we can still deliver programmatic advertising that is efficient, can deliver on our ambitions while still allowing us to track the value of these campaigns. We know the recent reality with iOS 14, it's going to get a bit more tricky as time goes on. So I think the how about how we do it may adapt, but the relevance will still always be there.
Yeah. How about Ritesh?
I think it's quite a strange question, right? Because I think my opinion really is that like programmatic is just a workflow. Like it's a workflow that's powered by like the digital connectivity of data and media technology. So as more things become digitally connected, like I feel like naturally programmatic will grow as kind of just the means, more than kind of something that competes against another method of buying.
Yeah. And Alexander?
I think definitely programmatic is here to stay. I think it's most likely going to change in a way. So I think in a way that the Wild West days are probably over. And I think there's a lot programmatic has to do, I think, in terms of cleaning up its act to some extent. So which goes back to the discussion about transparency. But generally speaking, I think there's a bright future actually for programmatic if a couple of things really get done, and then to really supporting business growth much more than it probably does right now. I'm saying this as a B2B marketer, which is an entirely different universe to, let's say, for example, booking.com. So it's very interesting to me to exchange notes here. But I think even for us, with sales cycles which go up to 2 years in some cases, it can still work, right? It just needs to be adapted.
Yeah, as a programmatic professional as well, it's lovely to hear how you think about the future role of programmatic. And I think we all align with the need of incorporating this technology in the media buying processes. And I think so it also gives us a possibility to react quickly and more efficiently to, let's say, sudden digital media changes. For example, what just happened last year with COVID, right? And from the publisher side, I definitely see that programmatic is one of the most important pillars for media owners and their, let's say, overall strategy. And in the near future, they will profit from this technology even more, because as I see, the technology is here. We just need to maximize the use of its capabilities, right? And after that, we will be in the much more better place in terms of, working together, using, its capabilities, again, just mentioning, and the transparency as it came up so many times. But this is the time when we are approaching to our last section, where I would like to fire one quick questions to each of you. First of all, Alexander, as a B2B advertiser's perspective, what was the most challenging about in-housing? Finding the right experts or technologies?
I think it's a combination of both, I think, but really the more challenging thing for us as a B2B company, and we sometimes have extremely niche audiences, which back when we started doing in-housing, there was no way for programmatic to really map that out, because it was much more a B2C activity back then. So that was a big challenge for us, which right now I'm actually quite happy about this. We focused very early on, we focused on our first party data in lack of really reasonable third party data, just because it wasn't available. And obviously now with changes coming to a cookieless future, etc., we're actually in a good position right now, because we spent a lot of time and effort on this. But I'd say, yeah, I guess scale in general is probably the biggest issue for us. Yeah.
Thank you. Ritesh, short question, but very broad. What should advertisers think about before in-housing?
It's a very broad question. So I think firstly, like, you have to think about, like, what are you wanting to in-house? Why are you wanting to in-house? And then once you've answered those questions, and when maybe as well, is to think about, okay, what do you need today? And what's the structure for success for today, but also what do you need for tomorrow? And I think that's where the risks lie. Because if you set up and go in-house for today's needs, you forget about there's so much change that occur to your business, but also from external factors, and you haven't considered them in. So how do you consider them and ensure that they're at the top of your agenda? But also then it's reviewing, like, what are the processes that I need to look at? What's the tech requirements? How does it connect up with my existing ecosystem? What's the talent requirements? Do I have the right people? How will I bring them in? How do I kind of upskill them? And then so many other aspects. But the reality is, go talk to your agency, go talk to peers, talk to others who've gone through the process of in-housing, and learn. You know, I think there's everything there for free. Have the conversation, and it will give you a good understanding of things you need to consider, and then how it could impact your business. And if all fails, also come to me, right? Like, I'm more than happy to kind of have a chat. And I'm sure the other panelists here are too.
Perfect. And last but not least, Aifric, do brands need to think about new innovative solutions, such as interactive and more engaging digital assets?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, you know, we see it ourselves as brands or agencies that the digital ecosystem, is constantly evolving. So we really need to make sure that we adapt to that evolution, and we're still capturing audiences, really regardless of the format, platform, or device that they are browsing, because this will continue to evolve. So we just need to make sure that the strategies across whatever the platform will help us meet our business objectives. And if that's a more interactive or engaging digital asset, I think it's just our job to continue the pace to make sure that we deliver on those assets.
Yes, personally, I believe innovation is key in digital media, especially in programmatic, and we should test, improve our processes right towards the clients, ubooking.com, for example, KPIs, as well as, I think so, publisher to deliver a relevant message to their audience or our audience, and I'm sure we all, demand and supply side experts, have been working hard and will be working to achieve the best-in-class service to our partners. But let this be as a final thought, because unfortunately I need to wrap up this great discussion. It was a very insightful conversation, and